members searching, singlemuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by singlemuslim.com. It's so amazing to be back with a new season with brand new guests and topic, but again, discussing relationships with myself, Fahima Mohammed, your relationship and couples coach. I want to welcome all of you, whether you're streaming live on Sky Channel 752, Facebook or Twitter. A very, very warm welcome from all of us here on British Muslim TV. If you want to join in the conversation, you are more than welcome to do so, and you can call in live to the studio on 01924 231 083, where I'll be taking your calls and you can address any of your queries and comments to myself or my guest tonight. Either way, we can also take in some of your messages and you can remain anonymous, and you can do so via our free WhatsApp service. And that number is 07585 835 150. Do want to also remind you, if you are calling in, that standard network rates do apply. So please do ask the bill payer's permission. We have an amazing guest tonight, all the way from the United States, a couple who are Jenny and Rufus, Triplett, who are also amazing authors and speakers who travel around the globe with all of their insights into relationships, as well as sharing their own experiences of being married for many years. And they're going to definitely answer our question tonight of, are your marriage goals realistic? That's just going to be a topic where we're going to dig deep and answer all of your questions and queries around this. And I would love you to help me welcome Jenny and Rufus. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Very, very welcome tonight. It's so amazing that out of your very, very busy schedule, you have given us your time, and I really appreciate it. I know how amazing your work is, and you've taken it global, so that's absolutely fantastic. Could you give us a little bit of an insight as to what you do? Jenny, we'll start with you.
Ain't this single Muslim?
It's single Muslim.
So I'm single for today.
What?
I got one day.
I don't think so.
Yes, really?
You ain't been single for a mighty long time.
Yes, okay.
A mighty long time. Okay, we are Rufus and Jenny Triplett, husband and wife team. We have been married 32 years. We are best-selling authors of the book, Surviving Marriage in the 21st Century, 13 Easy Tips that can help you get to 20 years and beyond. We are also international speakers. We travel around the globe speaking about marriage, family, business, life, and all of that good type of stuff. And we are podcast hosts of the podcast Surviving Marriage, just like the book. And we have a new book out, Send Me That Recipe, and we are in the middle of our book tour for that. Mm-hmm.
Wow, absolutely amazing. You know, I am so blown away, and I'm really, really honored to have both of you here today. Now, we're going to be talking about are your marriage goals realistic? Now, do you think it's really important that we actually do set marriage goals? And did you actually, do this when you were thinking about marriage so many years ago? And do you think it's similar today? Tell me, Rufus, what's your thoughts on that?
100% necessary to have marriage goals.
Yeah.
Did I have them? Sure, no. But again, my teachings about marriage were totally different when I grew up, and really the older folks weren't really giving us enough information, which is why we do what we do. But I 100% believe you need to have marriage goals. If not only today, I wish I had marriage goals back in the day.
Well, actually we did. Actually, we did, because we knew that we wanted to have our children young.
I knew I wasn't going to shack up either.
Young. We knew that we wanted to purchase a home, so we did that young. At the age of 24, we purchased our home. Still in the same house 30 years later.
Well, look at you.
Yeah, I mean, we had several goals. You don't, I guess we didn't think about it at that age, but things that we talked about that we knew what we wanted to. We knew we wanted to retire early. You know, we knew we wanted to get our kids out and be able to travel and have this time for us. So there are certain things that we talked about. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're right. Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
I think that's absolutely amazing. It's so good to hear that actually, even though years have passed, you know, we still have the similar sort of wants and needs. But what do you think has changed that's made us even think about goals as in realistic or unrealistic? What is realistic and unrealistic? Because even what you've just listed, you know, people nowadays may complain that that's just too much, you know, wanting to have a house or wanting to do this. So that's not about marriage. What's your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people do complain that, you know, it's all about just the commitment, the responsibility. What is realistic goals?
You know, one of the biggest things that have come in to change perception,
you tell them, girl,
perspectives, and everything in regards to marriage has been social media. We got married before social media. Yeah, we got married way before social media. So we didn't have everybody's opinions about our
we might not have made it because my family is very opinionated.
You know, and opinions about your relationship, what you should be doing, when you should be doing. Our parents wasn't even very instrumental in our relationship because they didn't even know we got married. We actually kind of eloped.
How you gonna do that to your parents?
We didn't tell either of our parents we were married until like 3 months into our marriage.
I wanted to tell them.
So many people have an opinion on what you should be doing, how it should be done. So many people, the voyeurism, how people are living their lives and their marriages have come into play big time. I mean, and we've counseled over 2,000 couples. So we see the problems that people have as far as marriage is concerned.
Let me tell you something that's not realistic that I keep hearing. What's not realistic is thinking you're going to find out everything about somebody before you get married. It ain't going to happen. It ain't happened in I don't know how long. I done talked to older couples, and I definitely talked to young folks. It ain't happened. You ain't going to know everything. You're going to think you know somebody, and then when y'all get behind closed doors, you're going to find out so much.
I really do love what you've just said. And I think it's so important. I mean, I think it's more of an expectation before marriage that causes a lot of issues even during the marriage. So having the right sort of predicament beforehand. But how do you go about that? How? Because you said you've coached so many couples. How would you, bring them back down to earth to understand what is the priority of these kinds of, goals that we need to set? Because I think it's about priority. It's not about maybe eliminating it. How would you go about that hierarchy as to what is the foundation of realistic goals to the more surface ones? What is the actual foundation of someone, entering into a marriage and speaking to their potential partner and saying, this is my vision, these are my wants, these are my kind of things that I, would like to have, and how does it sit with you? What would be your advice for that?
Well, if you're talking about a couple that's not married yet, that's a whole different discussion because we do talk to single people. And we have to ask their total overall vision. Like, what do you want your marriage to look like? What is marriage to you? What does marriage mean to you? When we ask that basic question, a lot of people can't even answer it. Mm-hmm. Like, what does marriage mean to you? What do you want your marriage to look like? Because a lot of times as a single person, you're all caught up in what I want. This is what I want. And even, as Muslims, that's not what we go into marriage for. There's 7 reasons why you can marry, but one of those reasons might not give you, what you want in the long run. It might give you what you want temporarily, but it might not give you what you want for 20 years.
But she said, how about, how do you go about that? One of the biggest things, like when we do counsel people, if we're not available, there's plenty of other people out there, but premarital counseling, I feel, is very important because what you feel or what you see and what they see and what that third person is going to give you is going to be more realistic than what your expectations are. So premarital counseling is very important, I feel, these days.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
everything that you see on social media is not realistic.
Definitely not.
You know, that may not be your marriage. That may be what you want, but that may not be what you get.
Oh, you ain't getting what? Hey, most people ain't getting what they want. Now you might get what you want in the end or after 20 years, but in the initial, no, y'all got to look. This is a test. Everybody still want to look at tests, just this big romance and got. This is a test, and this is probably one of the biggest tests that we're gonna have as human beings in our interaction with a male and a female.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I think that, you've highlighted a lot. I know I've started off talking about the expectation when you're single, and I think you've definitely highlighted how important premarital counseling is. And we are going to be talking more about when you are in a marriage, because I do find that now when people are in long-term commitment marriages, over the years, the fulfillment kind of dies. So even with all those goals, they do change, people evolve, but then couples don't know how each other's identity has actually shifted. So that's usually a problem where people can reassess their goals or invent their marriage. The thing is, we are coming into a short break. So before I even ask you that question, I want everyone to ponder on it. And inshallah, when we come back, we're going to be asking Rufus and Jenny about that, because I think it's so important that we address this, because, even at the beginning, if we can have the assistance from people, it's great. But when we are married and we have these issues, we're finding now a lot of people are struggling to actually maintain a spark or create a new spark in that marriage, which may even entail you reevaluating what each other's goals are and visions are. And you can actually do that while you're married after many years. Please do stay tuned, as we are going to go deeper into this conversation. And if there are any questions or queries, I look forward to getting your calls or reading out some of your messages. Make sure you do not go away. Stay with me, and we will see you in a very short while. Assalamu alaikum, and make sure you come back in a few minutes. Take care.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We are discussing how are your marriage goals realistic, or how realistic are they today? We have so much expectation. We do have certain needs and wants that we should not ignore. And it's really important, especially when you're entering into a marriage, to have these discussions. And we mentioned before how important premarital counseling is, so that you can get all those kind of, nitty-gritty details out of the way. But now I want to move on to people that have actually been in marriages for quite a few many years, and they come into a crossroads where they are not satisfied or completely fulfilled. And we want to address the fact that so many people either don't work at it, don't want to work at it, or they give up completely and even end that marriage. But there are different ways to maybe recreate that spark, recreate that relationship into even better than when it was first started. Is that even a possibility, do you think, to be in a relationship after so many years and create a spark again?
Well, we definitely feel, we've been married.
We done did
over three decades. So the person that you marry at 20, 21 is not the same person today. So, people evolve and change over time, and your marriage has to evolve and change over time with the person and with who they are. And your likes, are different. If you like the same thing at 20, some things you may like at 20.
Taste buds change.
Because some people still have the same shoes from when they were 20 years old. So they still have some,
They
some
got
things
what?
that they like, the same shoes.
What kind of
Shoes, okay? So they may still have some things that they like, but you grow. And if you're not growing as a person, you're not changing.
You're not growing your marriage. If you're not growing as a person, you're not growing the marriage. So, I mean, we can't stay here because we never get nowhere. So that's the biggest thing I learned in these 30 years is when I changed, she wasn't ready to change. I had to be, we taught patience. Right? Well, I mean, I wasn't taught it when I first got married, but I learned patience real quick if I didn't want to dissolve my marriage. Anywho, we got to learn patience because we're not going to all change at the same time. You didn't change at 5 the same way you changed at 10, 15, 20, you change. So and then you look at people who don't change and you kind of look down on them. I'm talking about even before marriage. So when you're going to do the same thing in your marriage, oh, he's still childish. Well, he ain't changed yet. You got to give him some time to change. And that's what the patience is the biggest thing, I think, for people who's already in the marriage. Patience is huge. And don't give up on your marriage because that spark does come back.
It's like putting in the work and willing to try new things, willing to try different things, because you've heard it where people who have been married for a long time, it's like their marriage just turned into
in a rut
to them being roommates.
We just in a rut.
They become roommates and they don't do anything like married couples do, and you have to constantly keep putting in the work to make sure that you grow your marriage.
You got to put in the work with your marriage, which is the foundation of your job and your children and anything. See, we do it in America, I know, as a reverse. We put so much work into our job that we're not putting the same efforts into our marriage.
And we also know people who have divorced after 20 years, but there was problems in that marriage way before
they didn't want to work on
20 years. And those problems they sat here.
That's right. So when y'all think that y'all just gonna have problems and just ignore them, no, them problems gonna stay there for the year after year after year until you get to 20 years and you feel like, what am I doing here? Because you still need to work on problems.
Look at some of the biggest, most richest people in the world. Bill Gates, divorced after 20 years. Jeff Bezos,
talking about
divorced
nobody
after 20 years. Some of the biggest people, richest people, money did not keep their marriages. Money did not make them happy. Money was not able to sustain their marriages.
But let's not get it wrong, because a lot of times people get this wrong too. You do have to have money to sustain your home. So that's part of the marriage. So it's not like, okay, if we ain't got money, we should still be okay. No, I mean, hey, I don't believe. I believe you still have to have some, but you don't have to have the riches that these people have, because it didn't keep their marriages together either.
At all.
I think what you've raised is so interesting. I loved everything that you've said. I mean, you've given me so much food for thought right now. The first thing I want to pick up on is really the fact that, obviously it takes work and people do develop and grow, evolve and, at different stages. And I think it's so, so vital that we do maintain patience. A lot of people today, they don't have that patience. And because of the accessibility with, the dating websites or even accessibility of just meeting online, people feel that the grass is greener so that they can just go work somewhere else instead of working, at home at the end of the day. So I do see that a lot. I totally agree with that. But also, if the couple is actually doing okay, there's so many things that happen in their lives. Like, for example, I think the biggest change is when children get involved. And maybe, after a while, for example, let's talk about the different genders. Like, some husbands are not that patient or understanding, or some women take longer to even get back on their feet after children and feel themselves again to be in that relationship. When you ask for patience, like, it can actually be months or even years when you are looking after, and some people will have maybe kids after kids, one after the other, year after year. And it does take a a toll on that marriage. What would be the ingredients and the method that you can give a couple if they're working even through challenging times? I know you guys are also chefs, so let's just talk in those sort of terminology. Give us some practical tips that people can actually use. When you say let's work at it, how? How in those challenging times, can you give us some examples of how couples can work at their marriage?
Well, having constructive conversations. We put this type of stuff in our books, and we also have a couples card game. But
to help people who can't conversate.
During COVID, when everything was shut down and everything, you know, our couples card game was like our fastest seller, biggest seller. We were counseling people left, right, around the world. We were so busy because people were busy in their lives, and now everything has shut down, and they're in the house together, and they have nothing to talk about. And they find that they have nothing to talk about. Some people are finding that they have grown in ways where they're growing apart, where they don't really know each other anymore. They were ships in passing because they were, you know, working, busy with the kids and different things like that, that they did not tune into one another. So that's one of the biggest things that you could tune into. Tune into your mate. I mean, date nights are important. Just you, your spouse, kids can go someplace else. If you cannot afford it, because we always tell people talk about money and budget. If you cannot afford a babysitter, give the kids something to do. Make it a date night for them and a date night for you, but away from you. But we are finding that people don't put boundaries between themselves, their marriage, and their children.
Boundaries are important.
You know, our children always knew that. When, don't bother me, leave me alone. This is my time. This is our time. This is that, you know, no, don't mama, no. Daddy. Exactly. No. If I tell you to go do something and don't bother me, then that's what you need to do. You know, it's not, it's such that you're running back and forth. You got to put boundaries so you can have that time between you and your spouse.
Make boundaries even on the conversation. Again, learn how to conversate. You said, what can people do? Learn how to and then if you knew how to conversate with the person you married in the beginning, now you got to learn how to conversate with the person you're married to now, because the conversation is going to be different. But you have to. It can't be like 2 words. You know, I'm done. What does that mean?
Right.
What do you mean you're done?
And
you cook?
You have to grow from the date nights, because a lot of people, once you have the date nights, then that needs to grow into your daily activities and your daily conversations. Do you have dinner together? We got married in the 80s. People was still sitting down and having dinner together. These days, folks come in, maybe pop something in the microwave, or, you know, grab something.
Did you fix me a plate?
They're running through the drive-through, you know, grabbing up something. Uber Eats, okay?
Ain't nobody in the kitchen.
You know, DoorDash, you know, but folks are getting it quickly, you know, on the fly, and there's no time to sit down.
Nothing's wrong with that if you sit down. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do the Uber Eats or whatever, but
no. But if you're sitting down, then you're still not having a conversation because you're on your electronics. You know,
absolutely.
You're not tuned in to your mate. You're not tuned in to your family. So you wonder why you're having problems. And as Muslims, and I'm not trying to say no names, but a lot of couples that we counsel, when we ask them about prayer.
Well, I hope you ain't saying no names.
When we ask them about prayer is not even involved.
Yeah.
It's nowhere.
Hey, and one of the first rules in our book is put God first.
Not in the relationship.
So if you ain't putting God first, again, I mean, it's priority. You say, how can they get through this? Prioritize. And that includes your religion. That includes every aspect of your life. You have to prioritize that in your marriage.
And then they wonder why they're having so many problems. Like, you guys aren't praying. You don't get farther together. You know, you can't. You know, I understand if you're working during the day, so you should at least be able to make farther and Isha together.
I'll be hearing them people with the prayer issues, and I'll be like, well, did y'all hear what he said about prayer? Boy,
I love that. That is so true. I think when I asked you about the foundation and the pyramid, I think that's what you've just laid out, is that the foundation and the core is your faith and your belief, and to actually set that, sort of set it up from that point onwards. We are coming into another break very shortly, and I've got so much more questions for you, Rufus and Jenny, but we will be addressing that after the short break. Again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I love the fact that you are, supporting the show, supporting the fact that we are here to make sure that we answer your questions and queries, your ideas for what the show should be each week. And inshallah, we will only continue to do so with your viewership and support, which I am really, really grateful for. We have an amazing guest tonight, all the way from the States. Make sure that you do not miss out on the next part, which will be coming out soon. If you stay with me, take care and see you shortly. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm glad that you're joining us here today with our wonderful guests streaming all the way from the United States. And we are talking about having realistic marriage goals. It's something that comes up again and again, but we're going right into it because at the end of the day, we don't sometimes emphasize on working on our marriages, like was, what was mentioned earlier, is that we spend so much time on our education and our career. We really want that relationship. We want that marriage. But once we get it, we kind of go dormant. We kind of stay flat after so many years. And we need to obviously work at it. That's what keeps a marriage thriving, not just thinking that you're going to be ticking all the boxes at the very beginning and then all of a sudden it's just going to fall into place. No, you need to work at it. That's why it's important that we have amazing guests like today to share their insights. So what would be your secret to keeping your marriage, apart from the patience and understanding each other's differences with growth? What other tips can you share that we can have some sort of insight as to what is the actual golden nuggets for a successful long-term marriage like yourselves?
Let me give this realistic for any religion, really. Christian, Muslims, Jewish, it don't matter. What the problem is everybody thinking that everybody's in the same space as far as religion. Look, he gives something to everybody at different times. So if I'm not in the same space with making my 5 prayers a day that you is, and I'm making at least the first 2, I'll get there. God willing, we all get to that space. But what we find in problem, because we counsel other religions as well, and because we counsel marriage. But nevertheless, quit thinking that everybody's religious space is the same. Right? We hope that our partners get there, but we're not responsible for that. That's another, we're responsible for ourselves and bringing something to the marriage, but we're not actually responsible for that person picking it up or learning it or actually implementing it into their lives.
I think that's a really interesting point, because a lot of people, when they decided to get married, they would say they want someone who is religious. And that's like a something that, people will say, well, if they're not religious, I don't want them. How would you go around something like that then?
Yeah, I was getting there as far as
while we're trying to tell them
the character traits that are exhibited before marriage. Because there's a lot of people that we speak to and we hear the preferences and, all the things that they want in a person and different things like that. And whenever they start to speak, I always give it in return, because what you want from someone, you have to manage that expectation of them wanting something back from you. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not one-sided. So let's say you want someone that is religious. Okay, so let's examine your religion. your religiosity or your,
Don't
worship.
make up some more words.
And those are not
Don't
made up.
those
are not made up. Okay. So let's examine what you do, on a daily basis. Let's examine, how do you see that? Because something has to be a reflection. Like your mate is a reflection. When he goes out, he's a reflection of me. When I present myself, I'm a reflection of him.
Inshallah.
So how do you want that to reflect in your mate? And I don't think people understand that, because once again, those preferences are so one-sided as far as what they think is going to make them happy. And those may not be the character traits that you need that's actually going to make you happy. So that's where I feel that people need to not only have premarital counseling, but also explore more as to who they are as a person. Because sometimes you pick things up from other people, like, oh, this is what made their marriage, wonderful. I want a person like that. I want a brother like that. I want a sister like that.
You can't be me.
Hush. And you can't necessarily have those type of, introspects from somebody else. That's what made their marriage wonderful. So yeah, people need to do a lot of work on themselves.
Oh, 100. But
and they also need to get the advice, because there's a lot of people out here advising. They need to get advice from people who have actually been successful in working it out.
How did that work for you?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna put this in perspective, that because this was big in my household, and when I accepted Islam wholeheartedly in my heart, I wanted it for my family. I wanted it for my wife and my children. But they wasn't growing at the pace that I was, because, I guess where I was in my deen. So eventually, one day, my wife came home after I accepted, and she was covered. And I was to the floor, because me trying to keep telling her, she heard me the first time. She heard me the first 5 times. But it wasn't about where I wanted her to be. It was about where her religious journey was. And I had to, and once I picked up on that, and I pulled back, she actually grew the 5 prayers a day, the whole 9, and here we are. But again, once we got our religious situation together, I think we came together. Because early on in my marriage, before Islam, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I don't know what the heck happened.
Besides religion, whatever is going on with the person, unless there's mental health issues, unless there's abuse.
I do got mental health issues.
Because we tell people, if there's abuse, you need to run. Because it's not going to get any better.
Darn.
It's not.
Put on your track shoes. Don't look back.
You need to go.
Keep running.
So unless it's mental health or abuse, situations can be worked out. But nobody needs to be browbeat. Nobody needs 40 hadith.
Nobody needs. Give it to them one time. If they heard you, they heard you. If they didn't, give it another year. Tell them again.
Nobody needs to be browbeated in
every day. You gotta hear it.
But we do.
That's oppression.
We do suggest counseling, because what a woman hears or what a man hears may not be what a woman hears or what a man hears. Mm-hmm. So with communication, there is giving and there's receiving. And a lot of times what you give may not be received properly, because you may not give it right. And a lot of times, what's received isn't what you gave.
But you have to learn how to receive we're talking about marriages here. Even in any relationship, you got to learn that person how to receive what they're saying. Because again, anything can get taken out of context, but know that person.
No, I hear you clearly. And I think what I'm also hearing, which I always say myself, it takes a bit of understanding of psychology and human behavior as well. Even if you haven't come from a successful marriage, but if you learn about characteristics and, personalities and things like that. So even if you want someone who is religious and they're not quite there, you'll be able to read that they've got the potential for it and they're working towards it, or they've got other things around them that can actually allure to it. But you're absolutely right, because we're also looking at the other person to be in a particular way. And I find that a lot, especially some of the stories that I've come across. It's like, oh, she has to be wearing hijab. She has to be doing, her salah, and she has to be doing 100% on a certain way, because that looks like the perfect wife to bring home to, have your family accept. So there is a pressure as well, and a preference, not just from the individuals, but families that have a box and a tick list that is, even up till now, which is more cultural than anything, that I feel plays a part and has gone on for generations, that even now, the newer generation, forget even social media, I think they're more influenced, even to a certain extent, especially in the Muslim community, by their own cultural norms, which is not necessarily to their advantage, nor does it serve them, because it's just something that they have done from generation to generation. So how would you go ahead and maybe help an individual who is struggling in making a choice of moving forward in their relationship if it's not successful, and they've had realistic goals, and now those goals are different, and they don't actually see the same anymore? How does the couple come together? What would be the counseling session that you would say to give them? Okay, we go on date nights. Yes, we might spend time together, but at the same time, a man's needs as well is different to a woman's needs. Their goals are slightly different, not just at the beginning, but also during the marriage. How would you say that it differs between men and women with their goals?
We talk to all kinds of people. We did during COVID, we did a webinar, a seminar with 7 MSAs across the New York tri-state area. And the majority of them are first generation immigrants. They're immigrant Muslims to the U.S. All their parents are, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Indian, whatever, Iranian, Saudi, whatever you want them to be. There was a wide array of people that was there. A lot of them are saying that they're pressured by their parents. Their parents have undue pressures on them, unrealistic goals as far as their marriages are concerned. People trying to matchmake them with people and different things like that. That they do not want.
But we all have preferences, right? So just because I don't preference to marry someone of my same
cultural background,
okay, that I have a different preference. So where are we with marriage? Period. When the influence of parents is I want you to marry someone that I like.
Yes.
Well, see, then you marry them, because I'm trying to marry somebody that I like.
Exactly. And we don't want to just, say that, that these are just like maybe Desi or Arab people.
I think you should listen to parents.
We have counseled a couple that was Nigerian and Egyptian, Black Egyptian. And the Black Egyptian parents did not want her to marry the Nigerian. They had a problem with that. It's a cultural, situation, a cultural thing.
Make me understand.
So
I think you're touching on something which is absolutely prevalent right now. It's just that unfortunate we are coming into a break. And before you continue, I want to make sure that, we get everyone's attention, because you've started something which is absolutely hot right now, the topic of the cultures, and you've got realistic, case studies to prove. And we're going to continue this conversation, which is extremely important. So please do stay with us, where we're going to continue with this issue. And inshallah, we will be coming back in a few moments. Please stay with us, and we will see you very shortly. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, and thank you for joining us here on British Muslim TV. We are on the Single Muslim live show sponsored by singlemuslim.com with the wonderful Jenny and Rufus streaming all the way from the United States, who are speakers and authors and who travel globally helping individuals in their relationships. We touched on before the break with regards to some of the case studies that they've had with the problems of the generation gap of parents having their own goals and putting it onto their children, potential, people that are going to get married now, and, they've got an unrealistic kind of expectation sometimes. So we need to address that before we even blame social media, especially when it comes to our Muslim community. As you were saying before the break, Jenny, what was it that you wanted to finalize with regards to the problem of culture?
Okay, so the Nigerian and the Black Egyptian, they met, they swooned, they fell in love. This whole caught feelings, different thing, and truly swooned because they met in an airport. So it was like passing in the night and all that type of thing. And they went back to both of their parents. They actually let them get engaged.
They wanted to do the right thing.
We met them during their engagement process, during the courting process. And people don't realize there's still a courting process, okay? So we met them through the courting process, and they were having all kinds of issues, mainly parental. Okay, mainly parental issues.
Oh, there was family problems right there. It wasn't their problem.
And it pressured the sister, so much that she broke it off. It off with the brother.
Ain't that something?
And they just couldn't just forget about one another or leave each other alone. Long story short, they spoke with us. We counseled them. They got our book. They still read our book, The Surviving Marriage in 21st Century book. They are married very happily with 2 children. They've been married probably about 6 or 7 years now.
And they bringing their family along slowly. That just might be something you have to do, but get right with Allah first. See, the thing when we push children off, and just because they like somebody that we may not like, see, they didn't even vet the boy first. I mean, you really want to get to know this dude.
Exactly. And when you are not open to conversations just because you don't like someone's culture, then you're doing yourself and your child a disservice. You're also not, exhibiting Muslim behavior.
We all came from a lot. I don't get it.
Why are you putting prejudices on someone just because of their culture? You don't know that person. You don't know.
I hear a lot of the times that the excuse for people to marry their own culture, and even some religious figures, leaders have said it makes it easier for the couple to actually maintain their marriage because they come from the same background. Do you agree with that?
No, I cannot believe that. And I'm going to put it in the context. I'm going to put it in the context of saying, let's say, Pakistani married within Pakistani culture, or Indians married within Indian culture, or Bangladeshi married within Bangladeshi culture. I don't believe that. No, we were all made in tribes and nations to be tests and trials of one another. So why couldn't someone else marry? As long as they're Muslim, that's what that's what you want. That's what the goal is.
Or as long as they're Christian, or as long as they're Jewish.
Yeah,
they believe what you believe. That's the beginning of anything.
So is being Muslim culture, or is being Muslim about Islam and the religion? So no, I don't believe that.
And you can have a Bangladeshi who is of Hindu or another religion, but not Muslim. What, is they supposed to marry him just because they of the same race? Right. That makes no sense.
And what's interesting is that how Somalis marry into Arab culture, pretty much without any problems or different things like that, and they get along just fine.
Hey, we married, but again, the way we grew up, what I know now concerning marriage, I mean, I'm cool with my wife, and we worked on our marriage. We've done what we had to do. But even if my wife had been a Caucasian, again, if she was Muslim and Caucasian, what is the problem? Okay, absolutely. We still starting out with that first tip in our book, which is put God first.
Put God first. So if you are putting Allah first and you are maintaining the tenets of Islam and you're doing what you're supposed to do as far as Islam, how does race and ethnicity play a part in it?
You won't have a problem with either one. Either one you want to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because you just also said at the beginning, there's so many divorces, and that's not happening because of the fact that they're from different backgrounds. They're all from the same backgrounds majority of the time anyways. So I mean, it doesn't even make sense.
And people also have to remember that the prophecy is coming true, that people are coming to this religion in droves. In droves.
And that's any race.
You know, so are you cutting off people just because you're trying to maintain a cultural, lineage that, may not even exist?
It's not even going to exist. I don't think it's going to exist because Allah, the way he created this and the way he's bringing it all back together and bringing people to Islam. Look, if we're going to look like everything, right? We're going to look like everything, and we're going to mix. And even here in the States, where a lot of white people, older white people, are trying to fight from people mixing with the races. That look, it's already been proven. Even during slavery, when they had us enslaved, we still mix races. It's going to happen regardless.
And you're not going to know who's Muslim. People don't even realize a lot of times they come across us with Muslim because our names is Rufus and Jenny.
And I get it that way for a reason.
Once again, that's that profiling of people. Now, if my name is Khadijah, but we know some Khadijas that are Muslim.
I'm sure some Aisha. There's a whole bunch of Aisha.
We know some Aishas that aren't Muslim.
Yes.
So you cannot just base it, on those superficial.
I knew when they told me if you don't change your name to Islamic name my name is Ismail. I do love the Islamic name. My name is, but when I go by Rufus because they told me that, and I didn't want no other young man who was trying to accept this deen to believe that he had to give up his father's name or anything else. No, that's not what makes you Muslim. So
exactly.
So we need to get off that race stuff in marriage.
We were headed to a TV show in New York, and we had a driver. They sent us a driver, and he just had Triplett, on the card. So we go and everything, and he saw how we're dressed. And of course, visibly, of course, you could see we're Muslim. And of course, in New York, you always get it. They always have to ask. Are you Muslim? It's like, yeah, we're Muslim. He said, but your name is Jenny. And
I'm like, bro, you Muslim? I don't see no kufi on your head.
And I was like, and?
And
what what does that mean?
Well, it just shows even in this day and age, with all of, the globalization, we're still very much learning about this integration, not just with backgrounds, but also with people from different cultures that are mixing. And I guess it comes down to identity because everyone identifies, from the country they're from. And then now when you're coming from faith, especially from our faith, it shouldn't really matter. And you shouldn't really be nationalistic. And culture's there to enjoy, but it's not to divide and not to keep it in a closed sort of net like most people are doing. And it's actually doing more harm than even bringing more Muslims into the actual community as they are. And we don't want to have segregation amongst our Muslims, and that's what's happening, unfortunately. So I think you've raised a really important point. We are basically going to be discussing quickly as well, which I really want to talk about, is that a lot of men complain that women nowadays have a very high expectation. And from what I know from the clientele that I reach out to, and they reach out to me as well with their issues, is that the reason why women are doing that is not because they're the usual gold diggers, it's because they want to safeguard themselves. And at the end of the day, they feel that, if a man is financially secure and if they are actually living and being in a particular way, then, that's something that gives them that safety. Because again, like I mentioned, women's goals are slightly different to men's goals, and men normally won't marry, or it doesn't matter if they marry on the same level or below, but women want same level or most likely higher than themselves for a reason. Do you think that is realistic to have those differences? And also to just give some final points, because we are coming towards the end of the show. And obviously, when you answer that question, obviously, please share your details, your books, so that people can reach you, your Instagram page as well.
I think it's unrealistic.
Very unrealistic.
To want to marry someone to take care of you.
I mean, it's fine to have that, but if you can wait, you might find it.
Now, I know you can marry for security, for money.
For money. Mm-hmm.
Money, that's one of the things you can marry for. But when you're asking that person to bring money to the table, what are you bringing to the table?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing. You know what I'm saying? So you're asking to be taken care of. So what else? And I think a lot of people have the problem with.
And marriage is about the two. We can't just, like, even though women say that, we just remember marriage is about the two. So again, it is about what are you bringing to the table. I know a lot of women don't want to acknowledge that. They just put it all on the man. But it is.
Yeah. What are you expecting to do? Like,
if she was waiting on me, she would have still been waiting. We got together. I didn't have all this money, but I got money now. But I didn't have money back then. But so you might miss out on opportunity with
Absolutely.
money.
I'm so sorry to interrupt right now, but I could listen to you for another few hours very easily. It's been it's been an absolute pleasure. But before we end, can you quickly share your details on your book so that people who wants to reach you, they can do so before we end?
Oh, okay. All right. You guys can go to our website, rufusandjennytriplett.com, find out all of our information there. You can get our books from our web store at rufusandjenny.com, just like our names are spelled, rufusandjenny.com. And you can find our books, Surviving Marriage in the 21st Century, Send Me our cookbook, Send Me That Recipe, our card game, our couples card game. You can find that. You can also find our books on Amazon, which may be easy for you guys to get shipping in the UK, as far as that's concerned.
Thank you.
Across social media at Rufus and Jenny, just like our names are on Twitter,
Brilliant.
Facebook, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel. You can find us there as well.
Unbelievable. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you both. I have thoroughly enjoyed the show. And like I said, I really appreciate all of you guys watching, and especially our wonderful guest tonight, Rufus and Jenny. Thank you so much. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Have a lovely evening. Assalamu alaikum. Take care. Good night.